We got to get to some new developments now from the FBI out of Michigan, with the agency in just the last couple of hours saying that truck ramming, remember that, on a synagogue in that state, was a Hezbollah-inspired act of terrorism. 10 minutes before the attack, officials say the attacker sent this final message in a video. Watch how it was described.
In Arabic, he records himself saying with this screenshot, "This is the largest gathering of Israelis in the state of Michigan, in the United States. I have booby-trapped the car. I will forcibly enter and start shooting them. God willing, I will kill as many of them as I possibly can."
Officials say the suspect rammed the truck into the synagogue back in March, remember that, which set part of the building on fire. We showed it to you that day. The suspect died by suicide during a gunfight with security. One guard was hurt in the attack, but is expected to make a full recovery. The synagogue has now, just in recent days, posted a picture, several pictures actually, online showing the aftermath of the attack, the charred hallways. Look at this, photographs that are melted off the wall. This is a children's center here with glass shattered on the floor and more. Officials say several members of the attacker's family had died in an Israeli airstrike in Lebanon just a week before the attack. Shaquille Brewster is following this one for us. Fill us in on what else officials had said, because there had been from the jump questions around motive here. It was, I think, very quickly dubbed as a suspected act of terror, and now there's these new details.
New details and really key messages that were sent between this suspect and sent from this suspect in the minutes before the attack. Literally, Hallie, as he was sitting in that parking lot in that pickup truck full of explosives for nearly 2 hours. Officials say, and the FBI saying that he sent about 19 different messages to his sister who lives in Lebanon, talking about ideas of being a martyr, talking about videos and sharing videos from Hezbollah leaders. There's even an image, a meme of the Israeli flag and Hezbollah lettering and coloring over that flag. The message from officials is that this is someone who wanted to kill as many people as possible, that he even searched ahead of the attack, looking for when people would be gathering for lunch in that synagogue. Listen to what we heard from the U.S. attorney during that press conference earlier today.
His death was just a means or a tool to kill as many Jews as he could. That's why his last statements were that he was on a special operation to kill as many of them as he possibly can.
The U.S. attorney going on to say that had this suspect survived this attack, he would likely be charged and convicted with providing material support to a terrorist organization. We should also note that officials said there is no evidence. They have gathered no evidence that anyone else was involved or that there were any other targets in this attack, Hallie.
Do they have any sense of the advanced planning on the attack? In other words, how long this person had been considering this kind of thing?
Yeah, so they point to the beginning of this year for when when he began to become radicalized, when he started listening to Hezbollah media, to Iranian media. But they point to March 9th as when he started planning this attack in earnest. They say that's when he purchased that AR-15 or AR-style rifle, ammunition, and other items at a local gun store. He was searching for Jewish centers throughout the Detroit area. The next day, March 10th, he visited a local shooting range. We just saw photos of that. He brought $2,200 worth of fireworks and also purchased from online large water containers that we learned he later filled with gasoline. On March 11th, he added photos to this Facebook album that he titled Vengeance and posted photos of those deceased family members, again, who lived in Lebanon. And the day of the attack, we learned he still tried to obtain even more accessories just that morning. And that's when he said that sent that flood of videos and photos to his sister who lives in Lebanon. One other point that we learned, Hallie, is that in the hours before the attack, he also called his ex-wife 5 different times. She called police, asking police to essentially do a welfare or wellness check on him. But unfortunately, that was literally minutes before the attack, as he was sitting in that pickup truck before he ended up ramming it, driving about 200 feet into that synagogue where we know about 140 children were inside. Again, fortunately, none of the children, none of the teachers were injured.
Shaquille Brewster, thank you very much for that. Lots of new details coming down on that late today. Appreciate that. Also tonight, you've got millions of people.
We thank you for watching. And remember, stay updated on breaking news and top stories on the NBC News app or watch live on our YouTube channel.